Welcome to Wintipy Sailing. I'm single-handing my Grind 27 around the world. I started my trip in Maine with a very cold 10-month overhaul of my entire boat. Solo sailed through the Caribbean, the Panama Canal, and 41 days alone across the Pacific. I've been cruising in French Polynesia for the last year and a half, kiting, spearfishing, freediving, and of course fixing all the things that break on my boat. Aboard the Gek, I have no fridge, water maker, fancy electronics, and my rowboat is a dinghy with a sail rig. If you're interested in seeing my daily life, check out my Instagram @BoatLizard. Okay, enjoy the episode. Okay, new day. And today I am sanding the epoxy off the bottom of my boat. So I spent a day and a half. Okay, that was my neighbor telling me that they are sanding the top of their boat today, which is really fun. So it's just going to be a big, messy sanding party. A day and a half filling blisters on the bottom of my boat with a mixture of epoxy and colloidal silica. Today I'm going to smooth everything out, take the epoxy layer down, and then my boat will be ready to put on base coat and bottom paint. Always brush your teeth after coffee, before respirator. Very important lesson that I learned the hard way. There's nothing like breathing in coffee breath. Ideally, I would use a full-face respirator, but I don't have one. Also, they're insanely hot. Also, they're insanely expensive. So this is the Polynesian style of doing things. So these, I have my half-face respirator with these particulate filters on it, earplugs because it's loud, and I'm going to try to do the t-shirt trick that the guys do here, where they put the shirt around their head to protect ears, hair, face from the falling dust. I'm borrowing someone's orbital sander. This guy is really big, and I only used it for about an hour before one of the yard guys took pity on me and let me use his smaller model, which was super, super nice.
There is something to be said about how you fill the room up. You walk on by and sting my heart with doubt. Did you notice how I fell hard every time I try to call you up? The line is always busy, and when I see you on the street, I know I never wanna be alone all the time. I wish for more, a way to sweep you off the floor.
Today was crazy. I don't think I can lift my arms above my belly button. I'm so sore. But I did manage to sand the entire hull today, which is incredible. And tomorrow I am going to start, or I'm going to continue trying to get my prop shaft off Operation Stuffing Box. Morning. My arms are not as sore as I thought they would be, which is really awesome. This morning I am revisiting my stuffing box, trying to get the prop shaft off. This project is insane. It's taken me 2 days to get off 7 bolts, and it just is really overwhelming. So this morning is my last attempt to get this bolt off myself, and if I can't manage it, I'll go to drastic measures. But anyway, I had a friend come by yesterday, my friend Jan, and she brought me a bag of goodies, and as she said, every girl needs toys, so here's what she brought me to help with the last bolt. Okay, we have impact driver. We have Dremel tool to cut a slot into the bolt, so I can use the impact driver to try to force it out that way since I can't get tools on. Giant hammer for hitting. Giant pair of vice grips. So first I'm going to try to use bigger vice grips to vice grip the bolt off, especially since it's been soaking. I'm going to start by taking everything out of the las. And I really hope today's the day I finally get the bolts off. Okay, I'm back down here in the troll hole. Not even enough space to sit up. I'm kind of hunched like this. About to try the bolt. Oh my god, I got the bolt to move. Now I'm back to this task of trying to pop the shaft out of the coupling. So this is the coupling, this is the shaft. It has to come back out of this whole situation. So the thing to do is to take sockets and put them inside of here, and then take longer bolts and slowly turn this around and tighten each bolt down, and that'll slowly squeeze the coupling together with the socket in between, which should push the coupling out. The problem that I'm having is that the bolts are getting really tight and they're hard to move, which makes me think that there's something bigger going on. I did get the last bolt, the last nut off, but some of the bolts are still seized. The other challenge of this task is that I'm working by my feet, so that any leverage I'm able to get is really far. You know, you want everything to be close to your core, but I'm basically bent in half. When I'm working, I'm actually doubled over like this, working like this. So I have put an impact driver on this thing, I've smashed it with a hammer, I've covered it in PB Blaster, and the bolts just aren't coming out. This is day 3 now of trying to get these 8 bolts out, and I think it's time for me to phone a friend. So a friend of mine actually just hauled his boat out today, and I'm going to ask him if he can give me a hand with this situation. So I've called in the big guns. Introducing the fearless Mario.
The Gollum. The Gollum is in the house.
He's in the troll hole.
In the troll hole, yes.
He got the bolts undone. It's emerging.
Gollum is released.
Well, because he did his job.
Oh.
Thank you, Mario.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks to Mario, I have all 4 of the bolts out, and I will show you guys the reason why I wasn't succeeding at getting the prop shaft out with these. And it's because, well, you probably can't see, but there are actually grooves in the prop shaft where these bolts run through. So the reason it wasn't coming out with this method was that when these bolts were still in, they were preventing the shaft from going back, and that's why I wasn't trying to force them too hard. It just went a certain way and then it stopped, and I listened to it. So now I'm going to try to tighten all these bolts, and the prop shaft should come out. Okay, the prop shaft is currently here. Check it out. They're apart. They're apart. They're apart. I'm just gonna unbolt this, and then I can take the whole coupling off, and I'm gonna give it a nice clean and de-rusting. So I'd call this a successful day. It's 5:20. So I'm just gonna clean up my mess and call it done. Today is the very exciting day of days when I get to use this. This is my new stuffing box. It is a silicone grease packed stuffing box. I just need to refill it with grease every 3 or 4 months, or however often I use my engine, which isn't that much anyway. And I will be bringing this and the required tools down into the troll hole to assemble, and then we'll see how it works to get the prop shaft back on, but one step at a time. Sorry, I used the wrong finger. So I've had to shut the hatch. I just stuffed this pillow in it to give it a little crack there because it's raining outside and it was raining into here, but this really becomes a troll hole now because it's pitch black. This is the old stuffing box copper tubing that was put over this. This is the coupling. Everything is apart. Now I'm going to clean this guy. So I'm just finishing tightening up these bolts on the coupling. I'm going around slowly and just doing a little turn on each one so that it tightens evenly. Ideally, I would have 2 1/2-inch wrenches and not a 1/2-inch wrench and a pair of vice grips. Unfortunately, I only have 1 1/2-inch wrench, so I'm being very careful and the vice grips are working. Alright, this step is getting the prop shaft back into the coupling. This is tricky because I'm going between outside, pushing the prop from the outside back to inside to look at this. Okie dokes, I have the first bolt in. Everything is driven home. This was really hard to do because I had to keep running between the prop to bang it in and here to make sure that the grooves lined up. Other items of note for this process, I'm never seizing the bolts and I'm using nylock nuts on the ends. The yellow piece that you can see on the stuffing box here is just used for installing it. When the prop shaft slides through the stuffing box, it could potentially hurt the very delicate lip seals that are inside of it. So you put the yellow cone on while you're installing it, and then once it's fully in place, you take the cone off. Next, I am stuffing the stuffy with grease through its stuffing port. I love how this is called stuffy grease. It really gives me a kick. So, squeeze the stuff in. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you one fully replaced stuffing box. Woo-ha! It's Saturday morning, and I have been working 10 to 12-hour days every day for the past 9 days. So, I have taken a slow morning. I'm just kind of hanging out, drinking coffee and zenning. Now it's 9:30 and I have been sitting here sort of preparing myself for my next move, which is installing 2 through hulls for my cockpit drains. So just to explain to you guys why I'm doing this, because everyone goes, oh my god, you don't want to add more holes into the bottom of your boat, to which I say, indeed, I agree. But what I'm doing makes sense and I will show you why. So right now, this is my hull, this is the cockpit. These are the cockpit drains. The cockpit drains actually, so they go under the cockpit, so to access this you open the las, you crawl in and under, and the cockpit drains at the moment tee together, and they go to 1 through hull that's between the rudder and the back of my boat. This is the back of my boat. My rudder is transom hung, so it hangs out the back, and there's a very small gap between the rudder and the back of the boat. It's about this big. It's like 1/4 of an inch. And the through hull for my 2 cockpit drains comes out in the space between the rudder and the back of the boat. So there's a very, very small amount of room for water to come out. With the T, things tend to get stuck in the T-fitting and I have to just constantly unclog from here. And what happens is that actually when it rains, my cockpit fills with water in really hard rain because the drains aren't able to drain fast enough. So my fear is that if my cockpit can't even keep up with a deluge of rain, if I take a wave in the cockpit, I'm just gonna be fucked. So that's the reason why I am basically making my cockpit drain like every other cockpit drains, and that is that each cockpit drain has its own through hull, and you cross them and they each go to their own side. So that's why I'm adding the 2 new through hulls. The old through hull, where the cockpit drains currently go to, is going to be where I attach the output of a bilge pump that I'm installing underneath my engine, so it's all fitting together really nicely. I made a list of all the steps that I need to do these through hulls, and I'm going to bring this down with me. Step 1, old hoses off. Step 2. New hoses on each side, measure and cut. Step 3. Mark hull on each side. Make sure there's room for each hose run and use the ball valve for reference. Step 4. Mark the center of each mark. Step 5. Drill one side's pilot hole. Step 6. Retest the run to make sure it's correct. Step 7. Cut giant hole. Step 8. Put the through hull in upside down through the hull so that I can go outside and mark on the through hull with tape where it comes through the actual hull itself. Step 9. Cut through hull using the nut. This is the point where I need a person to come help me. Okay, as you can see, I've changed my shirt. Drilling through fiberglass, the particles get in the air and I wanted as much of my skin covered as possible. So the next step is get a friend. So step 10, screw ball valve onto through fitting, get friend to hold through fitting on the other side. Make sure the lever can move. Once the ball valve is in position, hold it tight and have the outside person finish screwing in the through hull. Alright, I got help. The through hulls are dry fit in place, so now the last thing I have to do is drill the holes for the bolts and then countersink the holes on the outside of the boat, and then the dry fitting will be complete and I can end my day. It's 4 o'clock. I'm hoping to be done by 4:30, take a shower, and just have a nice chill Saturday. Here are the 2 through hulls dry fit in. They are on different levels because this bulkhead was in the way preventing this guy from being up higher, but it doesn't really matter if they're asymmetrical as long as the runs are good and clean, which they are. Step 11. Mark and drill bolt holes one at a time. After each hole, stick the bolt through. 12. Inset all the holes so that the bolts are flush with the hull. Oh my gosh, so I just finished the through hulls and I'm gonna call it a day. It's 4:30 exactly. Self high five. So I'm just gonna clean up from what I've done today, take a shower, and then have a nice little evening off since I've been in the boatyard a week and a half now and I feel like I can sort of slow down, and I also need to slow down because I'm getting a little burnt out. Today is the big day. I am getting my friend Mario to help me seal in my through hulls. So this is definitely a 2-person job. You need someone on the outside holding the through hull and pushing the bolts through, and then someone on the inside tightening everything down. So I'm using 3M 5200 to seal these guys in. I know that there's a lot of different products that different people use. Some people say don't ever use 5200 in case you ever want to get stuff out, and they actually use 4200 below the waterline. But for me, I like to know that my through hulls are not going to budge, and if the day comes when I have to cut them out, so be it, but I'd rather not have to think about them. I don't know. Anyway, this is what I'm using. Okay, so I guess we should start by unscrewing the through hull. Nice. Alright, I'm just gonna wipe it down. Oh my gosh, this is so messy. So Mario held the outer end of this through hull in place on the outside of the boat while I put the bolts on and tightened everything up from the inside We put 5,200 on both sides, his side and my side. It was basically everywhere in all the places it could possibly go, and more surprise places that I found later that night, like under my fingernails and somehow on my stomach, but that's how those things go. Alright, so one side is done, and we're working on the other side. For turning the through hulls, we're using this coconut scraper, which is the perfect size. It's like a 15-year-old boy's bedroom floor.
In fact.
Do you want to clean it?
Okay, where's the scraper? Ah. I had the impression the other side was, or here it was not like the house.
Well,
I might be wrong.
The inside, I think technically I should have made a wooden backing plate for the through hulls on the inside and sort of carved it. That's like the
Super fancy.
Yeah, if you're a yard and you're doing it for someone, it's the whatever standard. Day one of having a coconut scraper and it's already become a tool.
Oh, that's how it should be.
Gosh.
At least used.
It's true.
Perfect.
Yeehaw!
Well done.
Alright, the through hulls are completed. Everything is caulked in thanks to Mario's help, and I'm just gonna let this cure. I will be sitting out of the water for at least 4 days before I splash again, so that should be plenty of time. I know the thing says 7 days, but you know, we can't always get what we want. It's hot this morning, Sunday morning, so I'm having a chill day. I've only set myself a couple tasks today. One is epoxying in the base of my bilge pump so that I can let it set, and then the next day I can install the hoses. The other task I've set myself is oil change. This is my bilge pump. My dad made this mount for me so that I can glue the mount to the hull, and then everything is all set up. So first I'm going to just play around with the base and see where it fits the best, and then I'm going to prep the surface by wiping it down with some, whatever this is, paint thinner. And then I'm going to mix my epoxy resin and epoxy it into place. I'm just using a weight to lightly press this guy down so it doesn't slide around. You don't want it to be too heavy so it squishes everything out. You don't want it to be so light that it doesn't get a nice seal. Alright, the bilge pump is in place, and now I'm just going to wire in. So I've run this wire out to here, and I'm just going to connect it up with the wires of the bilge pump. I am going to fuse it, but I'm going to do all that on the other side of the engine locker where the connections aren't going to be in such a insane environment. And these are actually heat shrink connectors, so I'm just going to use a lighter. Alright, the bilge pump is wired up to all these wires and going into the locker on that side, so now everything on the inside here is done. It's so hot today. I've been working about 20 minutes to half an hour at a time and then lying under the fan, but just now I was probably in the troll hole for about an hour and I'm just so, I feel so weak, but it's just so hot. So I'm having some under the fan time before I wire in the rest of my bilge pump, try to drink some water and just cool down. Also today is too hot for anything much, so it's a 2 chickens mug day. But there's more than 2 chickens, you may say. Well, you can only see 2 at once when you're looking at the cup, so that's why it's the 2 chickens mug. See, those 2. Or those 2. Or these 2. The other one is called the many chickens mug because there are many chickens on it, but that one's for days when I'm more sorry, I'm delirious. Don't listen to me. Today I'm priming and painting the hull of my boat. So first I'm going to put a couple coats of a 2-part epoxy based primer on it and let that dry for the whole day. It's really nice and hot, so it should be good. So by the end of the day I can apply my bottom paint. I just finished putting on the bottom paint, so now the deck looks beautiful and amazing. Tomorrow they'll move the jack stands so I can hit those spots, but for now the majority of my work is done. It's 6 in the morning. Just got up, brushed my teeth, and I'm going to start painting again. It got dark last night before I was able to finish painting, so I'm getting up super early so that I can try to get a coat on and have it dry before they move me. Okay, the painting first coat is done, and now I'm waiting on the yard to launch a boat, and then I'm gonna have them, they're either gonna move me or move my jack stands. It's just another insanely hot day, so me and the fan are cuddling. So it's the end of another productive day here in the boatyard, and I'm dealing with one of the things that I haven't really talked about before, and that is the no-see-ums. I have so many bug bites tonight. I get them every night and every morning. They usually go away after about an hour, but tonight they've been particularly heinous. So this is the cream that I'm using. It's calamine drying lotion, but it's just insane. They're everywhere. This is my last day of work on my boat potentially, so I'm getting everything ready to prime and paint in the holes where the jack stands were. It's another hot day in the boatyard, and lucky for me, I get to wear all of these exciting clothes. I actually cut the legs off of my paper suit because it was too hot to be in long pants, so they are currently shorts. Organic vapor filter cartridges. It's important to keep these in plastic in between uses because if you leave them out they'll continue filtering the air around them all night long and then they'll wear out more quickly. I zipped my pants string into the zipper of my paper suit. Oh no. I'm stuck. And I'm worried because this suit is so flimsy. I don't want to rip it because it's already ripped here. So I think I have to cut the strings. This is so sad. Sorry, pants string. Today's the big day. I'm getting splashed today. I'm really excited. Alright, I'm getting getting ready to sail out of here. I'm sailing with everything that was in the LAS still in the cockpit so that I can keep poking my head down and check the stuffing box as I get underway and start to use the engine. It makes for kind of a messy cockpit while I'm underway, which normally I hate, but it is the only way that I can feel comfortable with this new repair is if I can just continually poke my head down and make sure there's no leaks. So here we go. Alright, moment of truth. I'm going into neutral here and I'm gonna look at the stuffing box and see what's happening. She's dry as a bone. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm approaching Apu Bay, which is on the south coast of Ta'a, and apparently there are about 15 moorings here. Oh man, just got out of the water from my first swim, and it truly is the best part of getting to an anchorage is finally putting everything away and then hopping in the water. So I wasn't actually able to provision before I left Raiatea today. All I managed to do was buy some bananas from this lady on the side of the road, so that's what I'm gonna be eating today. A wake came by and hit my boat, and I noticed there was water sloshing under my floorboard, which obviously is supposed to have been fixed by now. Tore everything out of the LAS again, went below, there was a ton of water. Can't really tell if it's coming from the stuffing box or not, but then I saw this little persistent drip coming from the front of the engine. So it's something to do with the raw water pump. So I've pumped all the water out from under the engine again. I've shut off the seacock so that no more water can come in, and now I'm going to open this guy up and see what it looks like inside. Thank you guys for watching this week's video. Also, thank you so much for the outpouring of love and support that you gave me in the comments section for my last video. I wish that I could transport all of that positivity to Boatyard Holly when she was really struggling with all of her tasks. I have just come back from 3 weeks in a really remote part of Fiji where there's no connection to the outside world except the once-a-month supply ship and sailors. So I have just skimmed through all your comments, and it was one of the best things I could possibly come back to civilization and see. Just a really quick side note. When I first started making my YouTube videos, it was very experimental. I was doing it on an iPad that was extremely slow. I had no idea what I was doing, and I wasn't sure if I liked it or not, and I was about to quit the videos, and then I gave myself an ultimatum, and I said, I'm going to try doing this for 1 year. If I don't like it after 1 year, then I'm going to stop. And the reason that I continued on was honestly because you guys are so amazing. Almost 100% of the comments on my videos are so positive and awesome, and they make me feel so good, and I feel like we're really a little community, which is really nice. And I was so worried when I first started doing YouTubes because, you know, people say the internet's full of trolls, it's such a nasty place, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get so many mean comments and people are gonna hate what I'm doing and judge me and tell me I'm doing stuff wrong, but that's really not the case for the most part. And so thank you guys for being awesome. Really. Okay, if you would like to buy Wind Hippie merchandise, I have a website in the link below. We can wear our t-shirts on Mondays when the videos come out, so we can all be matching. Thank you so much to my patrons who have supported me from the beginning and are the only reason I'm able to continue doing this trip without having to stop and get a land job somewhere. If you would like to become a patron, my Patreon is patreon.com/windhippie, and for one-time donations, I have a PayPal, paypal.me/windhippie. Thank you so much for all of that. Thank you, Tish, for helping me get these videos scheduled and up onto YouTube. You are the bomb. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks with another YouTube video. Patrons, I'll see you guys next week with a snack.